in this video, we're going to focus on how we can create a full screen here. For example, if I select here this bar, what happens is the bar chart will show now in full screen, and we can close this, and then it will go back here into its original shape. Let's select the line chart, there we are, and then close it again. So this is a very tricky one, and just a quick warning here, if you are trying to explore this maybe with mobile responsiveness, this is not yet fully operational. However, in the near future I'll make a separate video for that, but this one will be specifically for the desktop. So let's start to explore how we can create a full screen chart with the drop down button in Chart.js. And this topic is really a tricky one. So first thing what we need here is we need to go to chartjs3.com getting started, and this link you can also find in the description box. I want to get here the default code. So copy all of this. There you are, copy. And if you want to understand what it does, make sure you watch this video here that explains it all. I'm going to paste all of that in there. Once I did that, I will cut out this, and then I will just paste the title in here, save that, refresh. There we are. So the next thing what I want to do is I want to create a second chart in here. That chart will be a line chart. So I'm going to copy this. Let's duplicate this. Then I'll just say here line chart. Paste all of this in here. So what I'm going to do here is, because this will be my second chart, and I will calculate this from an index position, meaning index 0 and index 1. So if this is the second chart, it will be index 1. So I'll say here my chart 1, this will be my chart 1, this config. This is basically an ES6 shorthand, but for some reason in Chart.js, we need to do it like this, even though you would say, well, normally if it's a shorthand, the config should be like this, but that's not the case here, only for this one here. Alright, this is very important. So we're going to do here, do that, we say here this is a line, and then here we have the data. And for the data, we are not allowed to do it like that. We must do here the official shorthand structure. So we say data equals 1, and we can say here number 1, and what I will do here is I'll just, because this is a line chart, I'll just put in here these lines, and make these like a different number, so at least you can see some differences in our chart later on. Line width here, I'll just remove this, so we have that. Alright, so we have this, remember this one here, ES6, no shorthand, because now the constant is different. If the constant would be equal to data, so like this, then we can use data comma. But if the constant is a different variable, in that case data, colon, and then whatever the object name is. Same here, I'm going to put in 0, this is an exception here, 0, and then here 0. Then I say config 0, and then we say data equals 0. And then here, data 0. So once we did that, I need to duplicate here as well before we can refresh. So we say here, this will be number 1, and this will be number 0. If I save this, refresh, there we are, we have one line chart, and we have one bar chart here. Beautiful. So now what we want to do here is basically a drop down. What I want to do is here create a selection option that will start to work on it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do it in the chart card. This is very important. I'm going in the chart card, and I'm going to say here select, and then the select, what we will say here, we can just give it a class as well. I'm going to give it later on some CSS. We do btn, and I'm going to say here on change, meaning that we want to trigger a specific function if there's a change in the selected value. And then we're going to say here's on change, and then what we're going to put in here, toggle chart or full screen chart, doesn't matter. The value itself will be this, and this will refer to the selected option. So that would mean here. So we're going to say option here, and the first one value will be blank, and this will be just very straightforward as a indicator what to do. Select chart. The next one, so we're going to copy this. Basically here what we're going to say is, instead of select chart here, this will be number 0 for bar 1 and number 1 for bar for the line chart. So you have the bar chart, line chart. So once we did this, save that, refresh. Alright, so there we are, we have now this, and what I want to do here is a few things more. We need to make this full screen here, but also what I want to have is here a button. This button, when we select on full screen, this will be full screen on the chart on our screen, but it will hide this. So that will mean that I need a button here that would just say close. So to do that, I'm going to work in here in the chart box. I'm going to create a simple button, and this button is just very straightforward. You can say your class as well, and then we say your close. And then what I want to do here is I say value equals 1, or is it equals 1? I guess it depends. This is 0, sorry. And then what I want to do here as well is on click, trigger it, and then we're going to trigger as well this specific function. Once I did that there, and then we just say here close. Alright, so now we have this. What I want to do here now is to copy this, put it in here as well, but then we say here number 1. What I need to do for the chart here, and this is very important, I need to create a div container. So I call this a div and then class holder. And the reason why I need to do this is because if we don't do this, the canvas will be on max width, but due to this button here, it will usually have like this scrolling effect at the bottom, and I don't want that. That looks absolutely unappealing. So what I want to do is I want to make just full width without the need to scroll at all. That makes more sense. Just a full width of as long as it fits on the screen itself. So then what I'm going to do here, so this is the reason why we need this. If we don't do this, what will happen is this button with the padding and the height amount will push the canvas a bit down, and that creates a real problem. And that's a really tough item to solve, because the CSS and the canvas and Chartjs just don't want to work together as you expect. So that's why I had to do this, and this took me a while to figure out, just only this one. So then we have this here. If we save this now, of course nothing happens. I want to hide this later on, because we don't need to show this. We only show it the moment we click on one of these things on full width. So the first thing what I want to do now is just work on the CSS. So what we're going to do here, let's work first on the select button. So we're going to say here, very simple, dot btn, and then we say here the following. We can say here border solid 2 pixels black. Next, what we want to say here, padding 10 pixels. If I save this, refresh, you can see here, alright, that one works. I guess we need to do the same here also for close. And what we can do here, I guess, for the close button, let's do exactly the same. Say close. Then we say here, padding. If I save that, refresh, you can see here one thing what I want to do here. If you look at this, you can see here we have some space between here, and I want to add up some margin. So we have, or there's no space between here, and I want to add up the margin. So we're going to say here margin bottom 10 pixels. Save that and pay attention here. You will see now it has a little bit of space. Alright, it does impact a little bit the chart because of also the space here, but that's alright, don't worry about that. We're going to work on that later. So now we have these here. What we can do here as well is the next one, which will be eventually the holder. I guess we can do the holder first. Let's do the holder. And the holder contains the chart here. And basically here we're going to say width 100%. Alright, that looks better. 100%. And then we say height 100%. But we need to later on adjust a few items because of the amount of pixels that we have on the close button here. However, later on I will explain that. So now we have this here. So the final item will be eventually when we click on the, or when we select one here. What I want to do then is, in that case, when we select one, I want to give this chart box a class, a toggle class of full screen. So that will be the class. If I do it like this, but of course there's nothing in here. So what I'm going to do now is in here, we're going to say here dot chart box. Now we say dot full screen. Basically what we're really doing here now is the following. We're going to say in CSS, look for chart box class and then assign this. And then what we also will do is look for the chart box class, and if it also contains the full screen class, meaning they contain two classes. What will happen then, because this is more specific, and remember in CSS, the more specific you are, that will overrule a more general command or a general class. So this is a general class, but this is more specific because we have now two items that matches here. And what we want to do then is overrule whatever we have here. So basically what I want to overrule here is the width. We say 100%. So then we say if it's chart box full screen, instead of width 70 pixels, it will be 100%. Height, same story, 100%. So if I save that, refresh, you can see here now it starts to do something, but the width is still not as expected because we have here, if you want to understand a bit more about CSS, we're working with a flexbox. So what I want to do now is I don't want to be a flexbox. I want to make this an absolute position. So I'm going to say a position absolute. This would mean that we're now going to reposition it in the very corner up. Of course, it still doesn't look that perfect yet. We're going to work on that because we have this padding and maybe a background color we need to solve, and we have maybe a margin or whatever we have around there that needs to be removed. So you can see here the following. We have these two items here. Let's solve that. So padding. Or I can leave the padding. I guess padding would be fine because the padding itself will not impact because you can see the padding is here and then the border is the one that does impact. So I'm going to say here border radius. Just let's put this on 0. So we want to undo that. And also border. We have here the border, but what I want to do here is just border width. Assign it to 0 pixels. Save that. Refresh. Alright, that gets slightly better, but we have here this pixels here, and this is basically the amount of pixels here or margin. This basically it is reset, but it's alright. We're going to work on that right now. So next one I want to do here is the following. Enter. Full screen. I'm going to say here left 0 and height. No, not height. It's top 0. So if you're familiar with Canvas, we're working with X and Y coordinates. Basically here in the CSS, we also do X and Y coordinates. And what I mean with left is basically here in the corner here on start at 0 pixel. That's really at the left side. And then top 0, meaning top corner. We're going to put this nice item in the top corner. Alright. So now we have this. Of course, we're still not done here because Chart.js and JavaScript are still working against us. So basically the canvas itself where we have the maintainAspectRatio and we have a few items that we need to solve. Alright, but if I refresh here, alright, this is still active because of the full screen. So what I will do is save here, refresh. Alright, so now what I want to do here is start to work with the JavaScript. And let's grab the toggle chart function. That's the function that we're going to work on. So I'm going to say a function. Toggle chart here, and this here will be the value that we have. So this could be, well, we can give it a name. Let's say index. And what's referring to index is console log. We do here index. If we do index and save that, and we have already activated the chart. So if I activated the items there. So what I need to do here, and I just figured out that we have. Oh, that's alright, because we can use the click button as well. Because you can see here, it already works. I want to get the select, but the select is somehow being overruled because of the structure. That's alright, don't worry about that. Most important one here, we have this. So we have this here. And this one here shows the item itself. It shows you the value. You can see here, this is the value of the index. But what I really need is here index.value, save, refresh. Grab this, grab that. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is the following. And you can see here now this works, of course, probably because once it reloads the screen, everything will be back into a visible parameter, or basically screen size. So now you can see here, if I select here bar 1, bar 0, it will be index 0 or index 1. What I want to do now is click on this, and then I want to toggle the full screen item. So what I'm going to do here is the following. We're going to say here constant, and what I'm going to grab here is the chart box class. And we have here two of these classes, so pay attention here because now we're going to use a specific feature for this. So we're going to say here document dot query selector all. And what this really means is I'm going to search in the document, in the HTML document here, for a class, or sorry, not even class. We're going to search, query means search, for a selector, and a selector is basically an element. But we can be very specific, for example, an ID selector, or in our case, the chart box class selector. So I'm going to look for an element, selector all. I'm going to look not only for one, but I'm going to look for all with the name dot as indicating class chart box. Doing this, what will happen is now if we do a console log chart box, we will get what we call the nodes, and they look like an array, but it's not an array. So if I click here one, select this, you can see here we get a node list, and we have two items here. The div basically they're both the div items, as you can see. And what I need to know here is just only one thing: which index are we, 0 or 1? This is the reason why we have the index here. So now I can pinpoint. For example, here if I get this, or even this one here, remember, with the number, this will help us grabbing it this. If I save this now, refresh, if I select bar, index 0, which is correct, there you are. That's this one here. And if I do line, index 0, of index 1, grabs this one here. So now we can do here very simply the following. What I want to do here now is to add the class. So I say chart box dot class list, meaning that we're going to add a class, and then we say here toggle a class. So what is the class that we want to toggle? And the class name, and we don't have to put in here a dot. The reason why is because it is already indicating that we're going to add up something in the classes. So we already understand it's a class. So we're going to say here full screen. Save this, refresh, and then we do this. There we are. Of course, then if we click on this, we toggle it back, it will go back to its original position. Of course, here this still needs to be solved. However, we're getting there. So now we have this. So the next thing what we need to do then is start to add up the close button. What I want to do now is this close should be hidden. So what I'm going to do here is the following. I'm going to say here, let's go up here. We have the close, and I'll say here, display none. So if I save that, you can see here, if I click on this, what I want to do then eventually I want to show it here. What I will say here then is for the button dot show, and then all I will say here is instead of display none, I will say here, or we can even do it like this. Remember, specificity, because we're becoming very specific, and we say here display not true, it's display, I guess, block. That'll be fine. So what we're going to do now is, of course, toggle the show class. To make this simple, same structure we did previously, I'm going to do as well here. So what I want to do here is the following. I'm going to say here, for close, constant close, and constant close we'll have document. Well, basically just exactly the same here. And then we say here, not chart box, but select all for close. Remember, that's the button that we want to pinpoint. We want to pinpoint where is the button here, up somewhere. The button here, this one here, the close button. And what we want to add up here is, of course, the show. So we're going to do this again with the index value. This is why we have the index value here. And then what we want to say here is just very straightforward. Close dot class list. That we're going to toggle. I'm going to toggle here. Make sure you have the L here correctly. The class name show. Save that. Refresh. Alright. Select one. There we are. Close. Alright. So now we get this and it starts to work better. So what I want to do now is, when I refresh this, what I want to do next here with this is, you can see here we have still these two big size here. The reason why this size is now happening is two things. First of all, we need to adjust the maintainAspectRatio. And secondly, we have here the additional pixel of, or let's see here, you can see here, that is about 39 pixels in height. This is being impacted, and this is the reason why if I close this here, we have this scrolling here. So we need to reduce on the holder with, let's say, 40 pixels. So I'm going to go up here. In the holder, what we're going to do here, in the height, and the height we will change this, and we say here calc for calculation. So in in CSS we can create these kind of calculations, and all I want to do here is minus to 100% minus 40 pixels. If I save that, refresh. Now let's select an option. Alright, we still have it a little bit, don't worry, we're going to work on that now. So the next thing I want to do here is in the options here. And in the options, what I'm going to put in here is a few things. First of all, I'm going to say maintain aspect ratio will be set on equal to true, which is by default already, but we need this or else it will be undefined if we refer later on to it. So this is very important. And I can just change here. Maybe we can change the aspect ratio to 1. By default it is on 2, but I like 1 because 1 you have like these nice squares. Beautiful. So I'm going to copy this and do exactly the same here. Save that. Alright, so if I select now 1, we get this, but of course we have a massive size here. So, and if I close this, of course everything looks still hideous. So let's start to work on this. In here, let me just say here, this is the show close button. Show close button, so you're able to follow along. Next one is the the final one, which is basically the if statement here. So we're going to say if. And what I want to do here is, we have the selected item already, if I'm not mistaken. Alright, if I do this and if I do that one works, close this. But as you can see, somehow it doesn't work very well, because what we need to do now is an if statement to update the maintainAspectRatio, because what I want to do here, I want to set this on false. And let me show you why. Refresh here, then select line. Then we get this one here. Alright, so we have to do this and we're going to play around with that. So what I'm going to say here is the following. So if statement with the index dot value to update the specific chart. That's what we're going to do. So what I'm going to say here, if, and then what I'm going to figure out is what is the index we're going to select, or which one we have. And this is the only one I'm really struggling with, because I couldn't figure out how to do it differently. It just doesn't work. But then what I'm going to say here, if index value equals strict is 1, or sorry, let's start with 0. In that case, what I want to do here is another if statement. And here, what I need to check now is, are we basically on full screen or are we already back on the dashboard? So what I'm going to say here, if, and let me say here, my chart 0. So I'm not able to do like these nice tricks here. It just doesn't work. And the reason why is because here it basically not only draws the chart, it grabs all the objects as well. And for some reason, I'm just not able to connect them, but I will check if they're in the future. So what I'm going to do here is, and then we say here dot config, and then here options, and then we say here maintain aspect ratio equals strict true. And what I really want to do here now is to figure out if we are on full width, I want to check then if the maintain aspect ratio is on true. Well, basically, if we click the button here, or if we select one, we go on full width, and the full width will set the maintain aspect ratio on false. So that's very important. And probably I think we need to even put in responsive, but that's alright, I'll look at it later on. So if that is the case, then what I want to do, I want to set this basically to false. So I'm going to grab this, put it in there. And you might say, well, why are we not just doing this? Maybe here I use a command here, a specific command, constant abc equals this. Then we can just shorthand here. I've tried this, it doesn't work for some reason. Why? I cannot explain it. Maybe there might be maybe something I'm missing, but that's it. Anyway, so at least so you have understanding why I'm doing what I'm doing. So then, if that is the case, and if it is, we set this on false, sorry, and else we're going to set this on true. So this is the first one. So let me go back and put this back on true. Save, refresh. Select now this. Alright. Then you close. Alright. So this works. And then I guess what we need to do here is, let's see if we have to put the responsive in here as well. We're going to say responsive equals true. Save. There we are. Click that. All right, here, and all right, so we have to check on that one. That's all right. So we have this here, and then, oh, of course, why it's still not fully working is simply this. We didn't update the chart. So what I want to do then, if that is the case, I want to update the chart. So we say my chart 0.update, which is the specific chart we're focusing on. So that's the other chart here. This is number 1 and I want a 0. So we update this, and this is the reason why we have this if statement here. Let's save that, refresh, and let's see now if it works as expected. All right, we have this, but I guess we have still something that we need to check on. So what I'm going to do here, we have that, put that in there. This I will do 1, and then I'm going to check afterwards what are we missing. Save that. So we do exactly the same basically for line chart and for the bar chart. Same. So here, that's this. I feel like the maintain aspect ratio has not been adjusted. Am I correct? You can see it is now like that. It just maintains itself. So it means the aspect ratio is not being adjusted. So what I need to check here, maybe it should not be equal strict. Save. Alright, so I'm going to check here what's going on. Alright, so I figured out a mistake where it was, and it's an unbelievable sloppy mistake. It's here. We can see here I was typing and I was saying maintain aspect ratio, but here we have main aspect ratio, which of course is not an object. So if I scroll back here, this is the official term, maintain aspect ratio. So make sure you type that correctly or else it will not work and you will have a struggle like I did. Right, if I save this now, refresh, let's do this. Alright, so now we're getting closer. So here we have a few items what we still need to solve. And we have this here, but what we're dealing here is what we call box sizing. And that's the final item that we're going to add up here, which is the box sizing. And what is box sizing? Well, box sizing is very simply to calculate how many pixels the content should be. So by default, it's set on content box. That would mean that if the height would be, let's say 440 pixels, it will mean that the content will be 40 pixels, excluding padding, margin, excluding the padding and the border. But what I want is, I want to have a border box. A border box would mean if we set the height on 40, it will include the padding and the border pixel amount as well. If I save that, refresh here, click on that. Alright, so we have this one here, and then here, final item here, let's scroll down. We have the height here, so I expect that this height somehow is incorrectly calculated. This is 40, alright. So what we need to do here is make sure that we have this correct. Let's see. Although I was expecting 40, let's make it 60, see if we have everything nicely then. Alright, it overrules it, fair enough. We need to just do something here with the item here. Let's see here, I guess this one, that's also very important. Background. Make sure we make the background white, save that. Alright, so let me just check quickly. Alright, so the final item was just a CSS matter, and this was a real struggle. So what is the issue? Well, here, first of all, I know I had this put on minus 60, just put it back to minus 40. And what is the real issue is the following. I'm going to click here. If we select this, what is happening? The other item sticks out. The reason why it sticks out is basically here, this has a certain height. So what I want to do here is, I want to the width is here. And because it's a square shape, because of our ratio of 1, it makes it quite big. So what we need to do here with the width, because if you have multiple charts next to each other, we don't have to have a very big width. Because the big width, if it's a square shape, will make the height 700 pixels. And this is a problem because my screen here, if you look at the screen itself, is not, as you can see here, it's only 694 pixels. So it sticks out a bit. So what I want to do here is the following. Just make the width maximum 500 pixels. It should be more than sufficient. So it will not impact here, and it will stay this, and we can even make this 300 pixels if you want to have smaller items. But if I select here an option, there you are. Now you can see here beautifully, it works nice. Close, and then here line close as well. So once we do this, or let's go select one, the only thing here, if I'm not mistaken, is the mobile responsiveness. All right, so can I read the properties? We have to check on that one. However, the mobile responsiveness might not always be 100% correct, as you can see in here. So of course, for that requires a different type of CSS, and here this here is related to the flexbox. So what I do want to check is 188 toggle full class and the full screen. Let's see what's going on there. Alright, so while refreshing, for some reason I don't know exactly what happened, and now it suddenly is not anymore an error. So that means that it's probably fine, and you can see here now this does work nicely. It resizes it dynamically, and if I remove this, it will take full screen, and we can close this now, and we can select here another one. Alright, so that's basically it. I will try to explore very soon a separate one for mobile responsiveness as well. This has been a real struggle, to be honest, but this was also a quite complicated matter. Anyway, so that's basically it, how to do this. So next, maybe you want to understand more about the maintain aspect ratio. In that case, I would highly recommend to watch this specific video, how to resize the chart and maintain the aspect ratio as well. Here, this form can be very useful if you want to adjust your chart as well.